we continued our discussion on powerful woman. You watch to find out your strength. So Hannah dedicated the class tonight to her father, Reuven, the son of Moshe. Reuven, the son of Moshe, was a professional artist, and so his life was dedicated to sharing with the world beauty, and his life was also dedicated to his family. So what we learned tonight should help and be an elevation for his soul. And we are continuing. Now, continuing, of course, means last week was Hanukkah. The week before was the 19th of Kislev. So we need long memories to remember what we started 3 weeks ago, and we're now going to continue today. Now, this is still, we will still have some residual Hanukkah energy, meaning today was the last day of Hanukkah. As we mentioned, we just briefly mentioned last week, the last day is actually the most powerful. It has a special name. And it's really a great day to turn to God, to pray, and to thank God for all the miracles you have experienced, and then ask for more. So in case somehow you missed it last night or today, I think there's still energy tonight. I think tonight is still that energy because that's how it works in Judaism. Day begins the night before, just like the Sabbath begins Friday night. The holidays begin the night before. So the final day of Hanukkah began last night and continued through today. And now we sort of have, like, as I said, the residual energy, coloring, flavoring, uplifting tonight as well. So if you didn't do it today, tonight, I would suggest you to God, and I would begin first by appreciating and acknowledging and gratitude for all the miracles you've experienced in your life, and then say, and turning for more. It was really beautiful last week in our class party class. Everybody went around, people in person, people on Zoom, and everyone shared the miracle they experienced. And it was so beautiful because, of course, everyone had a miracle. Of course, many. The question is which one to share. But everyone, all of us, have we termed the word miracle? We've all had those things in our lives. That's the hand of God. Breaking through it might be the normal barrier. And that's really special. And it's special to remember it and to cherish it and to have confidence that there'll be more. What we are doing now is continuing this concept we began discussing, as we called it, powerful women. Of course, powerful women means us. We are the powerful women. We said that historically, we've really seen this perspective of the Jewish woman as the mainstay of everything in Judaism, the mainstay of the home, the family, the generations. And we discussed this last time and we all got it. We all agreed. We all saw it. We all definitely understand how women have a very strong impact in a way that a man does not on the home, on life, on the Jewish people. We said this is historical truth. And we said this is also true in terms of the redemption, that women are the ones entrusted with bringing the redemption. And we said that there's even a spiritual reason for that our soul energy is different than a man's. And our soul energy is what will be dominant by the redemption itself. And as such, since our soul energy links to redemption, they're the ones that are bringing it. It's our energy. And that's what we discussed 3 weeks ago. And now to continue this idea, this is based on a talk of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which he's giving in connection with the passing of his predecessor, who was his father-in-law. And the Rebbe told us that actually his father-in-law focused on women in a way that nobody had really done until that time. And then we're talking here in the late 20s, early 30s, they had begun in Riga, in Latvia, learning groups of women that were actually learning Hasidic concepts, which was, pretty heavy duty learning. And people were sort of like, what? Women learning this stuff? I mean, you want to learn the laws, of course, things relevant to family life, of course, but mystical, esoteric concepts? And the Rebbe at that time, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, really encouraged it. And the Rebbe explained because he knew Mashiach was coming. He knew women are the ones bringing it. So as such, we have to take these potentially powerful women, and we have to give them the tools to really empower them so they can do their job and redeem us. And of course, as we learn Hasidus, as we learn the inner dimension of God's Torah, of God's will, of God's wisdom, we are empowered. Our souls are ignited, as we discussed 2 weeks ago, and we do have the ability to make a difference, change the world, bring redemption. So this connection of the previous Rebbe to women, we see very strongly actually in his passing. And it's something he did very unusually in honor of his passing. Now, it's sort of hard to do something in honor of your passing. So that's a pretty cool trick. What did he do? So what he did was, before his passing, in honor of his passing, he actually wrote a lengthy Hasidic discourse of 20 sections. So what's he saying? I'm writing this discourse in honor of my passing, so when it happens, you guys will be ready? No. He said, I'm writing this discourse in honor of the passing of my grandmother, who passed away on the 10th of Shvat. And then some sections of the talk, he said, should be studied 3 days later, or were in connection with what happened, to be more accurate, 3 days later, the 13th of Shvat, the passing of his mother. So he's linking this Hasidic discourse, which is his spiritual will, the testimony of his life's work, because he passed away on the 10th of Shvat that year. But he didn't say, I'm writing in honor of my passing because I know I'm going to pass away the 10th of Shvat. He said, I'm writing in honor of the passing of my grandmother, who passed away the 10th of Shvat. He's linking it to women. So his past, the culmination of his work, he's linking to his grandmother. He's linking to his mother. He's linking to a women figure in his life. And also in the discourse itself, we're talking here about the Jewish people in their feminine dimension. The Jewish people as the woman, as God's woman. As the opening verse says, God speaking to us, I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. That's us, the Jewish people. It's not just us, the women of the Jewish people. The entire Jewish people are being referred to here by their feminine aspect. We are all, men and women, together, collectively, God's beloved, God's sister, God's bride. That's all of us. We're all the woman here in terms of our relationship to God. So that's true. But the fact that he's bringing this in as the central verse of this passage discussing, in essence, his passing, his accomplishments, his vision, and where we're going with it, again shows him being linked with women. Written in honor of two women, the passage is about the Jewish people as a woman, and the passage discusses what women do better than men, which is refine this physical world. That even though, of course, we're not saying that any man is off the hook, but the work of changing this world we view as better done by women, more skilled, more competent. And this goes all the way back to the patriarchs and matriarchs, very holy women and very holy men. And yet we're told that the women, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, they somehow were better able to have a grip on the physical world and change the world in a way that their husbands, who were amazing, our patriarchs, but in a way that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were so good, they were so holy, they were so great. They didn't as much interface with the physical as the matriarchs, as the women did. So we're talking about something written in honor of women. We're talking about something beginning with a verse calling all the Jewish people the woman. And we're talking about the work primarily, or most successfully, of women, which is transforming this world, refining this world, making this world God's home. When we think of that concept of the world being God's home, I'm telling you, it's a fact, historical imperative. Sarah did it better than Abraham. She better got the world, better understood the world, better dealt with the world. Rebecca better than Isaac. But why do you think so? Why do you see in your reality that we would say that women have a better grip on using the physicality and refining it and giving it to God? Why do you think women would be better at that than men? What do you see in terms of our ability to relate to the world around us? What we mean is take the world and figure out a way to give it to God. We give the world to God when we use the world for God, when we use the world in a godly fashion, when we take our best foods and make it for Shabbos, for the Sabbath, when we take our clothing and make sure it's modest, it's refined, it's dignified, it's godly. So we took clothing and we made it godly. We took food and we made it godly. We're taking very physical things and we're making them God's things in a very overt way. Now, all of us are obligated to do that. Every single Jew, all 15 million of us. But women do it a bit better than men. Any thoughts why?
God made us this way. We are nurturers. We're we have this need to nurture our children, to nurture our family. That's our innate, it's our drive.
So you're saying, as such, we also nurture the godliness in what we relate to because we're nurturers?
Yeah, it must be the reason why Hashem said we don't have to put a delay to film on, because we're already there.
That's an interesting thought. I like it. In other words, that sort of relates to the whole idea of why the very identity as a Jew is dependent on the mother, not the father, because a woman is a nurturer in a way a man is not. God made us different. God gave us different spiritual sources with different talents. We're not putting down men. We're just saying they're different. And men have great talents in other areas, but to nurture, that's a woman's domain. And that's why the woman has the ability to nurture that soul, that Jewish soul, and that ensures that the child will be a Jew because that soul will be maintained. And a man can't do it. And that's why if it's a Jewish man in the relationship, but not a Jewish woman, the child isn't Jewish. A soul could be drawn down, but it'll leave. There's no nurturing, anchoring force. So Rivka's 100% correct. A woman spiritually has a totally different ability to nurture than a man. And as such, and I hear what Rivka's saying, maybe that relates to how we respond to the godliness in the world around us, and how we can nurture the sparks, feel them, sense them, be drawn to them in a way that a man would be a little more oblivious. It could also relate to that a man and a woman, as I said, come from different sources. So one spiritual reality, which we did discuss last time, was women being from God's sovereignty, what you call in Hebrew malchut, which means actually the sovereignty of God, which is God's creative energy, the energy by which he causes things to be. All of creation is through sovereignty. And similarly, the woman in this world is the creator. She's the mother of life. As God's sovereignty embodied in the woman, we give life, we create life. And actually, as we're saying, we create Jewish life. And that's true. And from that perspective, man is God's emotions and woman is God's sovereignty. But there's also another dynamics between men and women spiritually. I don't know if we've touched on this or not. You can remind me if we have or we haven't. But we come from different aspects, or we embody different aspects in God's most holy name. God's most holy name is 4 letters. It's actually, we don't pronounce it. The only time we ever pronounced it properly is when we had the temple. So there's 4 Hebrew letters that form God's most holy name. And, like Jehovah's Witnesses, they're doing their version of the story of that, which of course is inaccurate. So you could say it because it's totally inaccurate. But if we actually could pronounce it properly, we're not allowed to. Only in the very spiritual, rarefied environment of the temple were Jews ever allowed to properly pronounce God's most holy name. And we're told by the redemption, we will all be able to say his name everywhere, because the world will be as holy or beyond than the temple was. So God's most holy name, Kabbalistically, extends itself in 4 dimensions. One of those dimensions is the male element, and a very different one is the female element. The male element is referred to as the ma, which symbolizes its numerical value of 45, and the females is the ban, which symbolizes a different number, 52. And this dynamics between the God as 45 versus God as 52 is also really very impactful in the difference between a man and a woman. And just to make this rather deep concept very superficial, really simplify it, the 45 element, the ma, is much more refined than the 52, the ban. But the 52 is much more powerful, much more physical, and much more powerful. As the number goes up, that implies the greater power, which tells us that the man representing 45, in a sense, again, man in his ultimate vision and version, is more spiritual than a woman. And a woman, in her ultimate vision and version, at 52, is much more powerful and much more within and expressive of the raw physical elements of the world in a way that we give them to God. In another way of understanding it, just to make this clear, 45 represents the soul, 52 represented the body. 45 represented Isaac, 52 represented Rebecca, and 45 represents the man, and 52 the woman. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to ask or to chat me privately. But what this is meaning in terms of our discussion is a woman as representing this God energy of 52 has more power than a man and has more relationship to the physical than a man. And for both of those reasons, we can and do impact the physical world in a way a man cannot. Again, I'm saying a man in his best version, a man that's really holy and godly, is going to be more remote from the physical. He won't be able to access it as well. It's not his world. It is the world of a woman. And the woman, when she's in her space, can take all this physicality and give it to God in a way a man can't, because we have a stronger nature, 52 instead of 45. Meaning it's not like, oh yeah, we're better, we're women. No, it's literally a spiritual reality. It's literally that we represent God's name in a dimension of 52, and men represent God's name in a dimension of 45, in a more refined but weaker dimension. It might shock you to think that man's coming from a more refined place, but again, in a sense he is, and more remote from this world, which is why we as women can really take the world and really, really give it to God. And this sort of relates also to the idea of, it says, by a passing, we're here talking about the passing of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, that says God went into his garden to pluck the roses. And the roses, which of course sort of is a feminine concept, it's a feminine word, but it represents the very, very righteous. That God goes into the garden and he uproots these beautiful roses and brings them up, carries them up, brings them up to God, brings them up to a higher plane, a higher dimension. And that's sort of really embodied, in a sense, for all of us when we can look at life. This could be how one looks at passing. Someone passes away. You can envision God coming into his garden and plucking another rose, taking another soul and bringing it upward to God. And you could also look at it in terms of our life and sometimes the harder things we go through in life. Just as God plucks the roses, which seemingly is not a good situation. That means someone passed away. In your garden, it means a rose was uprooted. But he's doing this for a purpose. He's doing this for an ultimate elevation. Each of these souls is now free to ascend higher and higher and ultimately come back in an even more perfect form by the redemption, when we have the resurrection of the dead as well. And that's sort of symbolizing our whole journey, not only our journey when we pass away and God goes into his garden and plucks a few more roses, but also in this world. But in this world, sometimes we go through things that, again, like plucking that rose, we don't see the positivity in it. We don't see how it's helping us. But just as God has a plan and a purpose, and is plucking those roses, it's to give them a greater ascent. It's to give them a better space than they had in this world. To give that soul ability to be free, to soar, to go to such higher dimensions. And that's true in our lives as well. In our lives as well, we go through those plucking experiences, which seems like departures, negatives, limitations, downs, but actually it's just like God's plucking those roses. It's only God's helping us on our journey to ascend. God plucks the roses. God takes the souls of the righteous for them to ascend, for them to say, you're done with your work on this world, and now you can go to a higher dimension. And for ourselves as well, we go through situations that seem hard, that seem limiting, that seem not what we scripted and wanted and are looking for. And it's also God nudging us forward. Sometimes even in our lives, we're put in situations that are really like, wait, God, why'd you put this person in my path? She's like so obnoxious. She's really making my life hard. And God says, I'm plucking my roses. I love you. I'm putting something in your path that's going to force you to grow and soar high above these issues. It's just another example of plucking those roses. Have you seen this? Because this is a very common theme in Jewish thought and Hasidic thought. We usually express it as every down is for a greater ascent, is for an up. And we're told that actually that's how God works. God limited himself to that box, that the only way he can possibly do anything in the life of a Jew that seems like a down is for it to be the trajectory for a much greater ascent. Lubavitcher Rebbe even says that there's no such thing as a down for a Jew. It's only the process in the upward movement. It's a very strong statement because we're all Jews and we've lived through life and we might think we've gone through downs and ups and harder times and better times. And I mean, life, we accept it. It's life. No, Lubavitcher Rebbe says, that's what you think. God would never put a Jew in something that's only a down. Any down you've ever been in your life was to be the catalyst of a growth you would otherwise not have had. And for that growth, it's all worthwhile. We could sometimes be in situations and we could say, yeah, I saw I grew. I see the gain, but I don't know if it was so worthwhile. Yes, I'm seeing it. I'm the choreographer here. It's worthwhile. It's the only reason. Anyone can think of a time when they experienced that, when maybe they wondered and then saw how truly it was a something worthwhile, something that really moved them upward.
I'm doing now opposite of, I'm thinking of every time I went upward, and then I'm thinking, what happened before that? And each time I moved upward, I find something, like you said,
oh, wow.
challenge.
That is so interesting.
Because I thought different.
You could go in the other direction. I never thought of it that way. Wow, that's fascinating. That is fascinating because we look at it like, I'm just being linear. That what looks like a down is to create the up. And you're saying, well, let's flip it around. What preceded my ascent? Wow, that is interesting. I don't know. It's like us moving forward, developing the muscles against the current, against the force of gravity, which doesn't mean, because that could feel sort of negative, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go through bad stuff to get to good stuff. No, it doesn't mean that. That might sound like what I'm saying, but it doesn't mean that you have to go through bad stuff to get to good stuff. It means we need growth. We're in this world for a reason. We're in this world to actualize our potential, to leave far more fulfilled and developed and refined than when we entered, to have lived, to look back in our life and say, yes, I lived. We could look back at a day and say, did I do today? Did I accomplish today? Did I live today? We could look back at a year, like on our birthday. Did I live this year? Did I accomplish this year? Did I grow this year? And we could look back at greater chunks of time and ask ourselves that same question. Did I live? Did I grow? Did I change? Did I give? Did I achieve? And for many of us, sometimes we need more challenging situations to push us to develop ourselves. But sometimes not. Sometimes on our own steam, we'll just say, I want more. I want to be better. I'm demanding more from myself. I'm in not a challenge space. I'm in an inspired space. I look at other people and I see they're doing it. I want to do too. And I want to do better. And I want to give more. And that could also facilitate a lot of growth. So I guess I should ask the question the other way. Now that Rivka got me started. Can you think of times when you grew and went to the ascent and things were better? And you could say, no, it wasn't that something happened that challenged me, but I do see that I was challenging myself, that I was demanding more from myself, that I was pushing myself to be a better person, to be better between me and God, to be better between me and other people, more sensitive, more thoughtful, more compassionate, less ego-driven, less self. And that, of course, that's harder because, of course, it's more rare to push yourself than to have God help along the process. But can anyone see that correlation of working on yourself and growing and then seeing things shifting in your life and things getting better in your life as you grew?
Yes, absolutely. But
your wig looks gorgeous. Now I get to see it more because you're talking. It looks really good.
So when you start pushing yourself in the right direction and you see the results and you understand that you want to do more and you change the whole attitude towards the life, like you're not You trust in Hashem so much that you're not scared like of things that you were scared before, like not getting depressed as easily as before or get agitated. And you see that it works so well in your life, and you can pass it to your children and your family. So in the beginning, maybe you push yourself, but then like it's not pushing so much because you know it works, and that's the only way that works.
So
You just adding more little by little.
That's really beautiful. I think, you know, sometimes what you're saying, sometimes in our life, we sort of see this pattern, like maybe a silly example is if someone is, I don't know, doing an exercise regime or being really careful about what they eat. And when you first start off, you're being super careful, but you don't look any different, you know, you don't look any different to the rest of the world. You just know that you're not eating this and eating that, or forcing yourself to get up earlier and working out. And you sort of need a lot of discipline because there's nothing else feeding it but your own discipline. But then over time, it starts working. And then there's a change in your health and your physique and whatever reason that was pushing you to do this. And then like that change itself feeds you and you're like, oh, wow, this really works. I feel better. I have more energy. I'm happier. I feel, you know, I'm healthier. And that shift then feeds you to just continue because it works. So we do see this in our life, and maybe that was a poor example, but what Mizucha is saying, we see in our life, and it's beautiful what she's saying, that if we're really clearly looking at our world, we could see it as well. You know, Rena just got on. So from sister to sister, I'm not saying anything private because Rena shared this last week. So for anyone that was privy and was on, it was very, very beautiful. I was very moved by what Rena said that she did for her child, her daughter, to have a child. And I'm wondering, Rena, and we're going to get you on now. Menucha just said that. So Menucha was saying how when you start pushing yourself and giving to God, it's hard because you're just doing it for whatever spiritual reason, but then actually you see it works and life changes. And the more you see how it works and enhances your life, it's just more and more natural to keep going because it makes life better. It makes life better, you're saying maybe emotionally. The more you trust, the less you're agitated, the less you're nervous, the more relaxed, confident, the more joy is in your family, the more your children and you are on the same page, and so many other ways. So when you were talking about your adding in the beautiful ways you did with the charity, with the candle lighting, with the prayer, and seeing, thank God, it worked in a very beautiful way. Do you see that follow over of like, okay, so now I want to do more because I see how well it works? Or no, but now I want to maintain it because I see it works? Or no, I got my goal and now I'm going to, how do you see that? How do you process your experience through what Menucha just said?
Definitely, I can do more. And I add some, I do more charity and I do more, so I try to not of course gossip, but even think in a bad way about other people. I try. And what else? Kosher food. 6 months I buy only kosher meat.
Wow.
And that's it for now. I don't know.
But you're saying like Menucha said, that because
right.
Like what Menucha was saying, which was such a beautiful thought, was I was talking about the challenge and the growth, and the ascent comes from the growth. And she was saying, well, the growth itself it works. Of course, there's such an ascent that you want to keep growing because you want another ascent. And then you want to keep growing because you want more. And you're saying, in essence, yes, you did the candles, you did the charity, you did the prayer, and you see it makes my life better. So that inspired you to the kosher meat. to bring more blessings or to think positively about people, because that's more aligned with God's vision. And it's just going to make your life better. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's such a beautiful idea. And what it takes is, of course, what Menucha is saying is correct. Well, it works. But it takes a very clear vision. Like she's making it so simple. but in life, it's not always so simple because our vision's not so clear. Like maybe you could say, well, I did this for God, and yeah, I got what I wanted from God, but God wants so many things. I don't know. Maybe next time I need to have some big need. Maybe I'll try it again. It takes a clear vision to say, wait a minute, this is my life. And if I see the more I give to God, the better my life is. Hey, let me be selfish. Let me give more to God. Because I want the best for me and my family. And I see the road works. I see it makes sense. That's really, really beautiful. So we got Menucha and Rena both affirming that, maybe just with thumbs up. Anyone else sees this in their life and sees how that affects them? That as they give God more, they see life is better. And as they see life is better, they give more because they know it's going to just give them a better life. I will definitely put a big thumbs up to that because I definitely see that. Think about it. I think what Menucha is saying and Rena is affirming, I guess I called on the right person, was a really beautiful insight into our dynamics. And again, if we can think in that so simple and straight path, it really makes sense for us to just see how else can I bring God into my life. Now, again, that might be much easier for a woman to see than a man, based on what we were just discussing, right? We just said that a woman, in a sense, has a stronger spiritual energy. We're 52, they're 45, and also a more invested in the physical, spiritual energy, which means that we really can connect God to our physical life. Maybe a man makes a greater connection in a synagogue, with a prayer book, with a study, and we can connect to God with our physical life, in our kitchens, in our cars, interacting with the people in our world. We can keep up a conversation with God all day long. I talk to God all day long. I bet I'm not the only one here that does, because he's so enmeshed in my life. And as a woman, we can see that more clearly. So this was one way the Rebbe developed here this idea of powerful women as the power today to infuse our lives with God. As Menucha said, it's not just for yourself. As you put this out in your home, gradually, might be very gradually, the people in the home start shifting. Maybe the husband starts shifting, maybe the children start shifting, maybe some faster and some slower, but your energy is causing them all to come step by step in God's direction. Who else has seen that besides Menucha? That as she's doing for God, perhaps slowly, perhaps more quickly, she sees the people in her family are also joining. Anyone else has seen that in their world? Because that's a woman's power. That's what we're all supposed to be doing. When your sons are getting married, you want them to have a good, very connected to God wife, because she's going to make the home. She's going to create the energy. That's what women do. Hopefully every one of you will see, because some people are take more time. You just keep putting out your energy. We know our role. We know our power. Put out the energy, put out the energy, put out the energy, and trust. And sometimes you can look at the people in your world, and instead of seeing them as they are, sees them as you know they're going to be. Look at them with the eyes of trust and confidence. Sometimes this is more challenging with children, sometimes more challenging with the spouse, but sometimes we're challenging with children and like, oh, but they're into this and they're doing this, and we get fearful and worried and concerned. And it's like, trust in your energy, trust in your merits, trust in what you're doing, and envision them and treat them and look at them as they will be. It's a road, it's a journey, but you keep walking the road, you keep creating that warm, embracive, proud of God, your relationship to God, and making that relationship so inviting energy. And everyone in the house, everyone in your circle, bit by bit gets moved along. You can also change your friends. You can also help them. You can also talk to your mom or your siblings. But the closer someone is to you, the more your energy just naturally affects them. Something else the Rebbe says, connecting to this idea of a woman's power, and we're seeing this specifically with the previous Rebbe, has to do with candle lighting. As the previous Rebbe's passing has to do with the idea of light, and light having to do specifically with Jewish women that were given this commandment to light the candles. And again, if it's a woman in the home, a man lights the candles. It's not like it's a commandment that only a woman can do. No, it's a commandment. We don't have to do it, but it's on the house. And God said it's on the woman of the house. That the woman of the house is the one to welcome the Sabbath, to welcome the Shabbos, the Shabbat. It's very interesting because a man that wants to connect to God and wants to welcome the Sabbath, he has to wait till he prays the evening prayer. That's when he officially welcomes the Sabbath. That's when he brings it in. But we do when we light the candles, which is far earlier, time-wise, than a man can pray the prayer service and welcome the Sabbath. So that's like, so again, it's just interesting. Like, God didn't have to make it gender specific. Why didn't he have the men? I mean, the father of the home, the master of the home. Why isn't he the one lighting the candles? God said, no. I want the woman to do it. Because lighting the candles means bringing light into the home. It's a physical, spiritual light. Every commandment brings light into the home, but we don't usually see it. When you light the candles of the Sabbath, you see the home has a light. And that's really the spiritual light that you're bringing in. God says, I want the woman to bring in that light. That's a woman's domain. That's a woman's gift. And it's very interesting because it really symbolizes our whole relationship to God, serving him. Because the Hebrew word for candle is ner. And ner is a numerical value of 250. And that is actually the numerical value of all of the positive commandments, all of the things biblically we need to do for God. We have 248 of them, plus 2 other commandments, which are the wings of them all, are love and fear of God. 248, do, plus the 2 wings that has to lift every commandment up, love and fear, 248 plus 2, 250. Numerical value of the word candle, of what a woman does. So that is telling us that when we light the candles of the Shabbat, of the Sabbath, of the holiday, it's embodying our entire service of God. And God said, and I want a woman to do it. If there's no woman around, the man can do it. He's allowed. If a man lives alone, if he's divorced, if he's widowed, never married, of course he can light the candle. But if there's an option, I want the woman to bring in my Sabbath. I want the woman to illuminate the home with that light. I want the woman to do the commandment that symbolizes the entire service of God. 248 plus 2, 250 candle. I want the woman to do that. God's saying, you have the power. They're 45. You're 52. They're my emotions. You're my sovereignty. You have the power. You're connected to the light in a way a man is not. You're tuned into God's light in a way a man is not. And therefore, you have the ability to allow that light to shine in your home in a way a man can't. He could do it if he has to. But by you, it's your energy. It's your nature. Of course, as Rivka said before, we're the nurturers. Of course, we're the ones that are nurturing God's light. Of course, we're the ones that is making God's light inviting to the whole home, that the whole home is now luminous. The whole home is now experiencing this light of God through our candles. Now you could say, well, I like the Sabbath candles every week, and I don't really see that it like sparks up my home. You might not see it, or you might see it, or you might sometimes see it. Or maybe the first time you did it, you saw it, but it does. Anyone ever had that experience? Again, it might be every week, it might have been once, that you lit the candles and you felt something different in the home.
Feels right when you feels right that you are doing right thing.
And you're connecting to a long chain of ancestors that did this too. This goes all the way back to Sarah. The first matriarch, Sarah, lit the candles, and it's been what Jewish women have been doing ever since. And sometimes it's like just special feeling, like you're saying, that rightness, that chain of like Jewish women from us all the way back to Sarah, lighting the candles and bringing that light in. Krista, what were you going to say?
I tend not to I don't consider myself to see things or feel things, but on a very practical level, it's like you're rushing to prepare for Shabbat, and then you make sure everything is, that light is off, that light is on, and then you light Shabbat candles, and it's like, oh, you good Shabbos, and it's like you exhale, no anxiety, no rushing, peacefulness.
Yes, I think that's a very weekly experience I have. It's definitely every time, exactly the pressure and the rushing and the this and the that. And then you bring in the candles and like, okay, you just breathe in the Sabbath. And Beryl always gives me a hug. He always comes over and gives me a hug and says, good Shabbos. And it's always that sense of like, yes, Shabbos has arrived. They feel the Sabbath energy. And like Bella said, it feels right. We're in our space. We're in our skin. We're exactly where we're supposed to be as a Jew and as a Jewish woman. And that's definitely true. So that was Bella's experience. That was Rivka's. Anyone else can share their experience when they light the candles?
Yeah, it's another opportunity to thank God for everything like he does for you, and also to ask God for.
It's a wonderful time to ask. I always think of it like the time when God is so tuned into the voice of the woman. So it's a very good opportunity to pray. And that's why, connecting to that and connecting to the whole commandment is why it's really good right before you light the candles to put some coins in charity. Because again, the truth is every time before you do a commandment, it's good to give charity. Charity sort of greases the wheels of what your commandment is accomplishing. But especially as Menucha is saying, when for so many women, after we light the candles, we pray, and it's a very good time to pray, it's even more important and appropriate to give the charity, to grease those wheels as well, do the commandment, bringing the light in, and then turning to God. It is definitely a really traditional time to pray because it's a special time. It's a special time of like feeling your voice is heard. Your Jewish woman's voice is heard. Some people have told me like the first time they light the candles, the first time they ever lit the candles, it was such a like transformative moment. And then maybe by the second or third or fourth or fifth, they didn't have that whoa feeling, but like they got it. That first time they felt the energy. They felt, not expecting to feel anything, they felt the difference in the home. Not knowing what was going to happen, they suddenly burst into tears and are crying for the next 10 minutes. Just because there's something there so powerful. And when it's the first time you do it, without any preparation, without knowing what's going on, it's just that power light comes at you and really, really affects you. And then every other time we remember this is that moment of power. And I want to tap into it. And how? Like Menucha said, I'm going to pray. Because this is the moment of that power. I want to use it. All right. So we will stop at this point. Thank you so much for joining. And think, of course, now it's Monday, till you get to Friday and you light your candles, you might forget. But just think of these ideas and looking at yourself and your dynamics in the home and what you really can accomplish, how much God has entrusted in you, and how much He trusts you, and how truly every one of us is that powerful woman here to change the world. Thank you.